Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. Today's reading we ask the question, what small change, what sort of minor nuance or decision in your life, so nothing that is drastic and that's going to sort of throw your life into disarray, but what small change in habit, approach, connection, whatever it might be, will bring the maximum benefit for you right now. So there's three choices to choose from in terms of readings. You're of course very welcome to look at more than one, because the choices or the options or the changes, there might be more than one that you could do at the same time, or they might kind of connect in some way. So you do you. But one of the things to sort of help get a sort of sense about which pile might be the right one and which reading might be the right one, I've actually chosen, well, I shuffled and asked Spirit to choose for me basically, 3 cards, one for each pile, to show an aspect of what this change would be. So for pile 1 we have the 8 of fire, or effectively 8 of wands. For pile 2 we have the 4 of swords, effectively 4 of air, effectively 4 of swords. And for pile 3 there was an additional major arcana card that came up for the Dreams of Gaia tarot, which is thought. So these images might call to you, the concepts and the tarot meanings might call to you. It might be the number. Whatever works for you is fine. And as I say, it's more than fine for you to go to more than one reading if you would like. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, as always, I have the timestamps in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So to start off, we have the Dreams of Gaia card, and we also have a couple of cards from the astrology reading cards, because I wanted to get a very high level idea about the area and type of change we could be talking about. And this, with the 6th house, very clearly is either about your career, your day-to-day job, or how you serve others in some way. And we have Leo, so it suggests to me, particularly with the fiery creative energy of the 8 of fire there, and the sort of sense of liberation and fiery sort of inspiration, that this is a change around your persona in the workplace, or your persona in how you actually serve and interact with others. If you aren't working, it could be, sort of community work. It could be stuff that you do for your family or for your friends. But with Leo, I think it's time to be a little bit more dramatic with the 8 of fire. There's a liberation sort of energy. For some of you, it might be leaving a job. That wouldn't seem like such a small change. But if you have another role to go to, or if you've already created something for yourself to go to that is maybe more in line with who you want to be in the world, it may be a relatively small change. You might have been doing work up until then to just pay the bills and not necessarily be who you want. And you may be in a position to do that, in which case this is definitely a big yes from the universe, that if you've got all your things aligned for that, this is definitely a time to do that. But otherwise, it just might be being a little bit more showy, a little bit more creative in what you're doing. Maybe you tend to be a little bit self-effacing with the 6th house. Maybe you make everything about serving others, and it's time maybe to also see what you can get creatively from something. If you're around people who rely on you a lot, it might be sort of your time to express what you need as well too, because the 6th house should be reciprocal. It shouldn't just be always you sacrificing. So it could be just a matter of changing how you're seen in work or your career or with others, and in the sort of fairer exchange of energy. So let's ask Tarot for a bit more information, a bit more detail on the area and type of change that you could make now that would have a small change. And this is a change just to maybe be a little bit more center stage, a little bit more about you, a little bit more dramatic, just to get a little bit more information about how that could really help you, pile 1. So it's interesting, the first 2 cards that I got here, I sort of feel something very strongly around relationships. So this may be sort of relationship that could sort of lead to sort of like family or something like that, sort of particularly with the world. There might be actually the step up, sort of really sort of taking that next step to create a stronger bond with somebody, move a relationship from its early stages into something that's at a higher level and more together. So there's definitely that possibility if any of you are if this is about passion and so forth, and connecting in a way that you want to sort of find your partner and your person for life and who you would want to support in a family sort of way. So that's possible. But if this is around career, and I do think for most of you it's about career or creativity in some way with the sixth house being involved, then I think that there's time to think about a change. And it's interesting because it is suggesting that you've had some good relationships where you were and you've enjoyed where you were. It's not really that this change is coming from being unhappy in the workplace or unhappy in your career or unhappy in how you serve others. You've had a lot of heart in this, but it hasn't necessarily been long term. And whatever it was that you were doing there, it's sort of time either to move up the ladder or move to another organisation. As I say, this should always be when you have something to go to. I'm not sort of advocating sort of walking out of work tomorrow if there isn't anything else, because that's a pretty significant change. This feels like an evolution. And one of the things that you may need to think about with this, you may be a little bit anxious about it because it looks as though it has a sort of different, almost intellectual requirement, and it is about you coming a little bit more out and being seen a bit more. So this could be taking on a leadership role, could be taking on a new contract that is a little bit more fast-paced than what you've done before. And if you're a little bit anxious about it, Spirit is saying don't be. You're ready to fly. You're ready to sort of take on this new challenge. You're ready to be seen more. You may, in fact, be moving into a leadership role of some sort when you've been more likely to have been in the team before. But again, you're ready. The time is now, and the time is to move with it. And I think you feel it. Even if there is a little bit of anxiety, you're coming out of that. You can see how this could work. May even be, for some of you, a temporary situation that you can now take that is worth doing because it will reap big rewards later. So you might be in an organisation where there's an opportunity to act in a higher position, for instance. So it's not necessarily long-term. It allows you to experiment. You might be a little bit anxious, but even the fact that it's a little bit temporary might make you feel a little less anxious. Whatever this is, it's not going to, as I say, rock your world instantly to such a point that you feel unstable, but it is a natural evolution from where you are, and you are meant to be seen a bit more. So let's see what the impact is on you. Then we're going to also look at the impact on or from others. So firstly, the impact on you of taking flight, I think, taking this opportunity, closing out on some sort of pattern around service to others or work that you've done to move into a new terrain. Okay, there's a little bit of a journey in the impact on you, Spirit is saying. You're actually naturally a little bit self-effacing, a little bit shy. Not necessarily in the sense that, you can't enjoy a party or anything like that, but you're not really someone who normally pushes themselves forward. But there is a need a bit to do this, to think differently about how you present yourself. The impact on you may, at first, you may feel a bit uncomfortable with it, but you're going to find your place, and you're going to see that this is a good decision, and you're actually going to find the fire in your energy. It's like up until then you've been very much around sort of thought and around emotion, around being a stabilizing influence potentially on other people around you, something like that. So you've, as I say, very selfless, and sixth house is very selfless. So it's not a natural thing for you, but it is something. It's time to sort of come out of that sort of I'm behind the scenes sort of energy. And in doing it, you're going to find people who connect with you. You're going to find a new sense of creative flair. It's really going to shift how you feel. And I think you're going to understand that underneath everything, there was a bit of an emotional block. By only focusing on how you would support others, you were actually denying yourself on some level. So let's see, given others, how they're going to either be impacted by this or respond to it. Because when we make changes, it does have a flow-on effect to people around us. So let's see the energy around that. Okay, there's a bit of a mixed bag here. There are going to be some that wanted the limelight more than you. There may be, this does pick up very much an energy of someone moving up the ladder or something like that, or taking on a new opportunity, getting some more responsibility. And there may be some that are not sure. They're kind of like, I actually feel, I mean, this could be competition, but I actually feel this is more like people that are the new peers that you work with. They're not against this happening, but they're waiting to see. They're waiting to see, and they are a little bit assessing, like, how does this affect their power, their image, their their sort of control of situations. So there's a little bit of that, but I don't feel like it's necessarily too bad. I just think you just need to be aware that when you move to a new level or you shift your degree of responsibility or how you're going to connect with others, particularly around work situations, that people will be assessing this and they'll be assessing where they sit with you. I'm not getting a real... I actually think these people look like either one may be on the way out. So this person may be watching it and sort of even trying to work out whether you maybe could then take over it. In fact, with some of you, it might be that you're acting in their position and there's almost a testing period to see if you could actually be there longer term. It feels like someone's leaving this situation. But I also think there's sort of someone who's also ambitious, but they're not really pushy. And in fact, they may be kind of happy with the fact that you might take on more of this public role, because they're a little bit unsure about doing that themselves by the looks of things. But there's just a sort of sense of people sort of watching this situation. There's a really nice connection that's going to come. You're going to have at least one really strong, good connection coming out of this. New friend, could be a new relationship. Certainly there's a sort of a sense of being accepted and having gone to that next level. And I think you'll feel, I think your ambivalence looks like it's, if I'm stepping up and I'm no longer in this team, will I fit in this team? And I think it's saying ultimately, yes, you will. There might be a little bit of, of assessment of you for a while, but I don't think you need to be worried about it. I think that it will work itself out. And I think in the end, you'll sort of see, actually, this doesn't mean I'm alone. It just means it's a different set of peers or people that I work with. So whether this is moving up the ladder, whether it's going into another organisation, whether it's taking on a new contract, if that's what you do, whether it's creative, you'll go through a period of kind of being assessed, but I think you're going to come through with flying colours, which is really, really good. So let's use the heart code oracles and look at how this affects 4 different key areas of your life. So we're just going to get a card for relationships, career, lifestyle, and well-being, just to sort of see the impact and any areas that you might need to focus on particularly as you make this shift to be a little bit more overt about who you are, make it a little bit more about you than you have done before. So around relationships, jealousy. Okay, so there could be some jealousy. I don't think it's major. It may be people that you've moved forward from. I feel like this is new peers and I think they're just sort of watching, but you may find there's some jealousy. There may be some people around you who've sort of thought, I liked you being sort of one of the team. Now you're getting ahead. I don't think it's anything to be too worried about, but I think it's just to know that that's kind of what happens with it. Let's see it on a career level, because I do think for many of you with the 6th house there that this is very much about career or profession in some way. Prioritization. Now this is interesting. There is a school of thought, and particularly if there is jealousy coming from maybe your former peers, that says when you move up the ladder, so if this is what this is about, or when you take on a new role that has a different group, you do need to prioritize the new relationships, not because you are being cold to those before, but because you do need to sort of find your place. And you do need to, and if you, particularly if you are moving up the ladder, the sort of concerns that now you're going to have are going to be more in common with these new people than necessarily the ones you've worked with before. And it's an adjustment phase. So I think that there is some stuff about prioritizing your time. I also think if there's jealousy, prioritizing your attention, not worrying too much about that. Let's see how this is going to impact your well-being. Your lifestyle first. Guarded. Okay, so you're going to be guarded for a little while. I do think it's going to be okay. I'm not getting an energy here that sort of says to beware. I think it's the right thing for you to do, and it will bring, this was about something to bring you maximum benefit, but I think you're just going to be a bit careful for a while. I don't think that's a problem. You're not necessarily giving away your personal details. You're more visible, and that's quite enough at the moment for you, I think. I don't think you want to sort of like give away your private details at the moment to anyone, and that's fine. So let's see around well-being. Hydrate. Okay. Make sure you keep yourself hydrated. Maybe there's you're going to be working longer hours, or really, it's interesting, fiery energy, that kind of makes sense. If you're doing something that's more creative, more fiery, like just on that level, it's almost like energetically you're using up more heat. So hydrating yourself is important. It's interesting also that we have the Ace of Cups and this full cup there. So I think you will find that this is a good energy for you, but it's a bit unfamiliar. You're finding your feet because it's not your natural style, or at least it wasn't. You may find you love it. Like, there's almost a feeling here that when you actually step into the limelight a bit, it's like, oh wow, that's not quite what I expected it to be. So let's get you just a couple of cards around psychological aspects, either to maximize or maybe be aware of as you're going through this change. So these are psychological aspects potentially in you, either or ones that maybe would be worth having in you if you don't feel that you do. So let's see what we get. Constructiveness and alimentiveness. Okay, so constructiveness is about ultimately being constructive, making this as constructive as possible. So if there's a shift, if there's a change and it doesn't feel completely you until you get settled in, it's partly about prioritization. It's partly about how do you make that shift and how do you do it constructively. It's important not to just make it a contrivance. If you are testing this out, if you're stepping into this, it needs to be something that you ultimately feel authentic about. That's the important thing. And to take constructive steps and to prioritize. You are ready to do this. Spirit would not be talking about doing it if you weren't. But you need to make sure that each step is constructed and to be guarded about who you talk with, because you don't want people to misconceive you. It all needs to be seen as a seamless and sensible step up. And you're stepping into the limelight, not because you're showy, because you're not, but because this is how you can best serve now in whatever capacity this is. You need to have an appetite for it. You need to want to do it, but not get taken away by it. Like, I'm actually getting one thing. It could be sort of someone who's a performer and they've been an understudy and they're about to be on the stage. And it's like, this is the natural progression for them. Someone else is stepping aside. It's time for you to be in the limelight. Have the appetite for it, but don't get drunk on it. You could get some jealousy. You need to be careful who you talk to. So there's very much a sort of sense of being more in the limelight and needing to get steps that work for you and to feel the real appetite for it. So to help you, let's get a couple of archangels to watch over it. So the small change is you just stepping more into the limelight, literally. I mean, that's why I'm getting that sort of sense of a performer, but you don't have to literally be a performer. The archangels are Haniel with inspiration. Yeah, take the inspiration, your creative inspiration. It may be for some of you, it's a creative project that you've sort of never really felt game to do and to maybe make your profession before, but it's time to do it. And it is about something that you love, you know, in the Ace of Cups, because Haniel watches over Venus. And Metatron, connection. So making the right connections, moving up the ladder, getting to the next sort of level, connecting with new people, connecting creatively. Also, this could be writing and so forth, because Metatron is the divine scribe. So for some of you, this might be getting your work out there. And it may shift what you want to do for your profession and your day-to-day work as you become known. So we could be looking at a small step, which is getting your work out there, making the connections that actually brings much bigger steps over time for your career. Okay. So let's finish off with a couple of things. Let's get you some blessings from the fairy blessings, so from the Fae. So the blessings that come from making this change, from stepping a little bit more in the limelight, pile one. A blessing of movement. So it makes sense. Moving forward, freedom, flight. Taking steps, positive steps for you, not just about other people. And a blessing of the Seelie. This is rather lovely because this is about a blessing to join the Seelie court. And the Seelie court are effectively sort of a Fae high order group. And so it's the induction into a group. And it comes from an understanding that you have been very kind, very generous, very courteous, all of those things to others. And so it is your turn now to have that kindness and courtesy given to you. So you've done your time. You've looked after people. You've done whatever needed for the team or for your family or whatever it is. This is a time for you to be recognized, for you to get some rewards, but it does require you to say, yes, I'm ready to step into this. I'm ready to be seen in some way. I'm ready to step up. So to finish off, I just want to take a card from the Enchanted Spell Oracle to see what you can manifest through this relatively minor change, just stepping into that spotlight a little bit, pile one. What can you manifest? Integrity. So this is more true to you, ultimately. You're meant to be a bit in the limelight. You're meant to be creative. You're meant to be in a more senior level. I think because of your great courtesy and care and the fact that what you want to do is to help others, whatever you do, whether it be a higher level position, whether it be something creative, it comes from a really pure base. It comes from wanting to serve. It comes from wanting to do more. So this is why you can kind of, even though you might be a bit guarded at first and you need to prioritize your time and you might have a little bit of jealousy, ultimately you're stepping into what you're meant to do, what you were always meant to do. But it's like, you did your time and you proved yourself, and now it's time to move forward and to be accepted in whatever it is that you're seeking to be accepted in. So I hope that resonates for you, pile one. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile two, to your reading. So we have the Dreams of Gaia card, and then we also have some astrology cards to try and get a sense about the area in your life that the change can be made. And this is probably pretty clear, I have to say. This card, which is the Four of Air, it's different in the Dreams of Gaia to standard tarot in as much as that's not about sort of being quiet and taking time out and resting and so forth. This card talks about ordering your environment, getting rid of clutter, getting back to first principles, clearing the way in some way, getting rid of anything negative. And it's very interesting that the true astrology energies are really about communication and the intellect and how you want, I think, to speak your truth or to tell your story or to bring in something new that is sort of intellectual. There's a very strong emphasis here on how you communicate with others. So it's almost like simplify, get back to first principles. So if you, for instance, were writing a novel, it might be it's time to do the editing process, and that process will sort of simplify and clarify and make the writing even more crisp. If you are working out a strategy, it's like you've had a brilliant inspiration, you know how to communicate it to people, but you have to order it or structure it in some way, put it into a project plan, for instance. If you were working in technology or something like that, and that's the way this air energy is operating, then it's like you've got the grand scheme, but the thing that's going to take you that next step forward is ordering it, structuring it in some way, giving it a kind of almost a framework to work from. So I think whatever this is, it's about something that you're either trying to create that has an intellectual or technology or science or something like that kind of aspect to it, or it's something that you're trying to communicate through writing or speaking or some other communication medium. And the thing that's going to really make it rocket through the stratosphere, because it's clever enough already and it's inspired enough already, is just sort of like a trimming, a judicious sort of like looking at the structure and the crispness, as I keep getting. That's the sort of feeling I get about this. So let's ask Tarot for a little bit more information about how this slight change, this small change, can bring big benefits to you. Because you're a communicator, and there's nothing actually wrong with your communication. This is just the small nuance or something that's going to make a big difference. So let's see why. Yeah, this is a strength of yours. That's being said straight out of the gate. Okay, so one of the things that Spirit is saying is that you maybe even underestimate your strength. It's almost like one of the reasons that less is more is around this is that if you really knew how strong and powerful what you were doing, what you were communicating, what you were thinking, whatever this is about, you wouldn't get sort of carried away with what are all the different options. Again, I keep feeling like this is like a novel or a screenplay, for instance, and it's sort of saying that you have so many ideas about what to do that you kind of don't want to lose or trim out any of them. there's a saying that they say in writing, which is kill your darlings, which is a sort of idea of you write your novel, for instance, or your screenplay, and there's a point at which, maybe a character that you love, but it's not really serving the story needs to go, or something like that. It's sort of like there's a trimming process here, but you almost feel at the moment like, oh, will I choose the right one? And you doubt yourself a bit. So, and what this is saying in actual fact is, maybe if that's the case, maybe get some advice from someone who you feel understands the industry, understands the message and so forth. If this isn't writing, if it's something scientific, it might be sort of someone who you feel has a very strong track record in the verification of the process. If it's IT, it's someone who really understands how, you go from, say, software development to deployment. There's something where possibly someone could help you with that aspect of it, and not to feel worried about doing that, because you really have a strength and this person's going to really respect what you do. But it's just a matter of understanding that you can let some of this go. You can, it's almost like, I feel like with the Seven of Cups here, particularly if you are a creative person or a communicator, it's like you've almost got potentially three things in one here, like one really single thing, and then you've got two other sort of almost like, it's almost like two trilogies and a standalone novel, if that makes sense. There's something about, you've just almost got too much, but you're sort of like, you're not sure about what to do. And I think you can get some advice, but don't doubt the strength of what you do. Let's see what the impact on you will be if you take this advice of spirit and you start to trust your own instincts about what you can let go of, what you can trim down, what you can declutter in your communication style or science style or thought style. Wow. Oh my goodness, part two. Firstly, I'll get to Nine of Swords, but firstly, whatever this is, as I say, whether it's something you're writing, whether it's something you're creating, whether it's a scientific thing, whether it's AI, you can have enormous success with this. You can have something that really touches people, that really engages them, that they're really excited about creatively. Like, there's no doubt about it. Again, it's a strength of yours. And by simplifying it a bit and ordering it a bit, you kind of get to the core thing, the thing that's really going to touch people. So again, if this is like a novel you're writing, go to the first principles about what is the core emotional message here, and trim back anything that doesn't serve that, because there's an enormous happy outcome around this, and enormous, I think, critical acclaim and a sense of sort of really being yourself. What will also come though is that that level of success is going to bring you a bit of anxiety to the next level. I kind of think it's almost a good anxiety to have, because it means you've been successful. But it does say one of the reasons why it's important to make this thing and see the outcome of it is that you're then going to be at the next level doing the next thing, the next novel, the next screenplay, the next AI tech, the next scientific thing. And you're always going to worry a bit about things. So you can't fully escape that, but there's something about putting this discipline in that's going to help you, because you're moving up the ladder with this. This is going to be very successful, I think. Once you're prepared to do this once, you'll be able to do it. You'll know, you'll have the trigger. You'll know in future things when you need to do it again. Okay, so let's see the impact of this on others, or how they impact it. Because whenever we make slight changes in our lives, it does impact other people, and they do respond to it. Okay, I've got to say, if you're a writer, your editor's really going to like this. They're going to see money. Like, I think the Queen of Swords there is operating really well. And even science or anything like that, the fact that you're prepared to do this, they're going to like. They might question you, they might test you, they might make sure the resolve is there. But I think there is a sense that this is going to, with the 10 of Cups and the 10 of Coins, have a very good material outcome for you. There might be some that test your resolve. Like, are you really happy to let go of, as I say, to kill your darlings or whatever it is? Are you happy to do this? And they might pressure you to make further decisions. So there could be a step in this, again, if you're a writer, for instance, that you do this process and then you get to the next level with a publisher, for instance, and they want you to do it even more. And this could be a little bit of the anxiety. But you are going to have more of a choice here because you've already done it, and they're going to allow you that choice. They're just going to press you a bit. But it's about making sure that, again, anything emotionally that doesn't work, that is still there, is moved out. If this is something scientific, it's making sure it's robust and it's not still got sort of a little bit of that Seven of Cups energy. So I think others are going to recognize what you do. I think they're going to think there's a lot of potential for this, but they're going to push you even a little bit further. That's why it's important to start making this shift now and to be ready. It's almost like building a muscle of clarification and simplification at each level so that the thing gets more and more powerful, whatever this is that it's talking about. Okay, so let's have a look at how this might impact various aspects of your life. So I have the Heart Code Oracles for relationship, career, lifestyle, and well-being. So we'll just get one card for each just to sort of see how this shift, this simplification shift in whatever it is that you're doing on a very mental communication level, how that is going to impact those various aspects of your life. So with relationships, we've got judgment. I think there might be some judgment of what you do, but I think it's going to be favorable judgment. I think it's also bringing better judgment into how you relate, who you're connecting to, who your message is for. So I think it's bringing in a level of judgment, a level of order into relationships. Around your career, caution. So I think that's picking up some of these swords. You're going to be cautious about this, cautious about when. This is why I think you might go and get some advice about it. If you feel that would be helpful, don't let your pride get in the way. That could be a sensible thing to do. And I do think you're going to be successful. So I think that you're going to need to be a little bit cautious about at the next level and the next level who you listen to and so forth. But that's okay. I think it's kind of, as I say, it's almost a good challenge to have because it means that you're being successful. Look at lifestyle. Reaction. This is going to have a flow-over effect into other parts of your life. If you start clarifying whatever your message is, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you're going to find that impact, that decluttering, is going to have a flow-on effect. If you're sort of like a writer who was always surrounded by sort of chaos in your house, then just this process is almost going to sort of make you decide to declutter your house. I don't think that's a bad thing to do. And looking at well-being, vision. I think you'll start to see your vision. It'll be clearer. And I'm also getting that, if you are, dealing with technology or science or writing or anything like that, maybe get your vision checked, only in as much as you could be spending a lot of time in front of a computer screen. So it's always good to sort of make sure that that's as supported as possible. Also want to have a look at a couple of psychological elements of yours that would be useful to be aware of or to expand, depending upon what they are, to make the most of this shift. Marvelousness. Wow. And ambition. Okay. So there is going to be something marvelous, and I think where you're starting, whatever this is, and it is something, it's communication, it's science, it's AI, it's something in the mind anyway. There is something very marvelous about it, and there's something really channeled about it. So there is a spirituality aspect to it, and making sure that when you are decluttering it, you don't lose that core. That's part of the core. But don't get overly skeptical about everything. You've got to get a balance in. You've got to keep the wonder in what you're doing, but also get rid of anything extraneous. And focus on what your ambition is and make it about the work, not about sort of vanity or anything like that. This is about the work. I'm also getting a very literal thing here. If you're a writer, you're meant to do this so that you don't end up, having to sort of go the sort of like self-publishing or vanity press type of way. You actually have something that's going to be seen, I think, and be accepted in the traditional area because you're prepared to do this work. And that is not to put down anybody who self-publishes, but I think that sometimes what can happen is that if you don't go through the exercise of trimming and so forth, then sometimes there are predatory publishers out there that are really effectively ones that make money out of you connecting with them, not necessarily out of doing proper distribution and so forth. So if you are in that thing, just be aware of that. Make sure your ambition is directed to the right sorts of things. Not there's plenty of websites, if you are a writer, that will tell you about which sort of groups to watch out for so that you don't get a predatory sort of publisher around you, because it's not really a publisher in the real traditional sense if that's the case. So just got that to say that for anybody that might apply to, because there's something very powerful in what you've got here, and the important thing is to give it the best distribution as possible, but that requires that kind of discipline around it, and that's only going to be for people who write. So let's also get you some archangel support for this shift in your life. Haniel, awakening. So this is about what you love because Venus is there, but there's awakening to, I think, the core thing around this, the core essence of it. By decluttering, by simplifying it, you will actually get to the core inspiration. And we also have Zadkiel, miracle, Jupiter. It'll bring in luck. It'll bring in success. And you may think, like, this is a miracle. How did this happen? But it's in fact been the discipline that you've brought to this, and the fact that you've shown that you're able to do that. You're able to make it about the craft and not about just, I'm the best writer, or I'm the best AI person, or whatever it might be, or I'm the great scientist with the great idea. It's really the process. Then whatever this is, you'll think it's miraculous, but the reality is you'll have brought it in yourself. So let's then finish the reading with a couple of things. Firstly, I want to get you 2 blessings of the Fae that will come from actually taking on this advice and making this sort of like nuance to the work that you're doing. And then we're going to get a card from the Enchanted Spell Oracle for what you could manifest. So the blessings that are available to you by this small but significant shift. A blessing of Ain and a blessing of connection. So this adds another layer to it, pal, too, in as much as this is about the integrity of the body and who you want to share with and so forth. And this is about connection. Now, I think the blessing of connection could be broader in this, about the connection with an audience, connection with the industry that you work in, connection with those that would judge and give you approbation, all of those things. But I suspect there's something about this work, once it starts to be out in the world, that may also bring in people who want to be connected with you on other levels. And this is about you making sure that you honor that, and that you bring in the right person and the right energy and so forth. So if you are on your own, then this may bring in a relationship. If you aren't on your own, you may get some pretty interesting fans or people like that, or people, if it's not literally about the body, but about the integrity of your work. It might be people who then want to take it and use it in some other way. So you may have to protect your vision and protect what is yours, protect your intellectual property, that sort of thing as well. But ultimately, again, these are problems that only happen from something good, only from success. So let's see ultimately what you can manifest through taking this advice from Spirit. Intellect. Yeah, well, you're already really smart, but I think you're going to be seen to be even smarter because you really know how to do it, and you make it about the work, you make it about getting to the point of things, you make it about understanding and awakening and aha moments for you and for other people. But I think you're going to be really known for being incredibly smart, incredibly creative or brilliant or innovative, and part of it is because while your vision is like 360 degrees in every direction, basically, you can pinpoint it to what its key points are, and that's why it's going to be so resonant, and that's why people are going to be a little bit in awe of your intellect. But you just need, at this point, to start to trim what you're doing and to think about the industry or the audience. That's all you really need to do now, Pile 2. I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So we here have the Dreams of Gaia card, and then also a couple of astrology reading cards to get a sense about what area in your life a small but significant change would bring you maximum benefit. And this card talks about how your thoughts become reality. It's kind of almost a law of attraction manifestation card. And to me, it always makes me think of alchemy as well, even though this particular cauldron doesn't look like the sort of vestibules that are or whatever vessels that are used in alchemy, it still makes me think of that. It makes me think of bringing things together, all the sort of elements of the earth. And it's interesting that Taurus is here, very earthy, grounded energy around this, and also Vesta, the home, the hearth and the home and what is sacred. So I feel like there is something here about you understanding that you do have a very strong manifestation power, and you can bring in the sort of life that you want, the sort of productivity that you want, whether it's in work or whether it's in relationships or whether it's in health, whatever it might be. And a very happy home connection as well too, whether it's living on your own and being happy in the freedom of it, or whether it's in a family. There is a sense of you can bring your reality in, but understanding that you can do that, and maybe envisaging this is sort of understanding that if you are thinking about things that are negative, you may be bringing that in without even being aware of it. If you start thinking about what would the good life be to you, what would make you feel at home, you can bring that in. So this is very much a call to you around your power of manifestation. So let's see what else Spirit can tell us about that. Like, what do they really want you to do? I mean, maybe it is just believing and putting your thought towards stuff, envisaging it and all that kind of thing. But let's see what other information Tarot can give us about this small but significant change you can make to bring in maximum benefits, pile 3. So Spirit wants you to have a think, wants you to think, to start with, about a time when you felt defeated, a time when something that you wanted in terms of happiness, the good life, career, whatever it is, didn't return what you wanted, and how you didn't make a choice. It's saying that in this situation, whatever it was almost like you let it happen. And that's not meant as a criticism, but it's kind of like you thought you were powerless. Spirit wants you to understand and start thinking in the opposite way, that your energy and your thought, you are sovereign to your life, and you have much more power and influence than you think. Now, it could be that you missed out on a job promotion, and Spirit is saying you can start with getting re-inspired again to bring in, being a leader. That's very much a possibility. It could be that you felt disappointed around love in some way, and it might have been because you weren't sure whether this was the right one, for instance, or whether it was going to last, but potentially a very strong new passion is coming in if you allow it in. Spirit is saying that thinking about what was your thought processes, what were the beliefs, what was the programming that was operating in your mind, because your mind is very, very strong, at the time when something didn't work out. And it's almost like reverse it, flip it. That's all you need to do, because your mind is very powerful. So let's see how doing this would be important for you. What's the impact on you if you just kind of did almost a kind of a review of the times where things didn't work out, and just kind of try and track back and remember, how did you view it? What did you expect? Did you always have a kind of preemptive pessimism so that at least you wouldn't be disappointed? Because the thing about this is that keeps you out of the choice mode. It makes you feel like I'm preparing, I'm bolstering myself. If you understand that and you flip that switch and bring through your inspiration, that's when you start to bring through the power. So let's see the impact on you of doing this review and starting to change the programming of what you say to yourself. Well, that's pretty clear. For a start, you can be a lot happier. And you can get more balanced relationships, you can get sort of benefactors, you can get support at work, you can get support in the home life, reciprocal things and so forth. And you can certainly get to a more authentic sort of sense of what you want emotionally. The only thing that Spirit is saying is that once you realize your power, you're going to have to be judicious about how you use it, because otherwise you could almost, where you had been sort of like pessimistic, you could get so carried away with this that could entrap you as well. Spirit is saying that the good life can be brought in through authentically envisaging that what that is, but don't get caught in addictions or patterns of behavior that are all about flexing that muscle either. It's sort of like that's the only risk around this. And I don't think Spirit is not saying don't do it, just saying that you're going to be so aware in doing this how powerful you actually are. And I think this is spiritually and also like material manifestation. But the only trap to watch out for is that you get a little bit caught in the power aspect of it. I don't think it's a huge problem for you because with Queen of Cups there's a sort of sense of emotional authenticity, but that would be the risk that, you know, if you start to sort of see that, it makes me think of some of those sort of fairy stories where people start to sort of understand what they could have and then they want more and more and more. So it's just a little bit of an understanding that part of this is also about sharing of bounty. Part of this is about joy emotionally. So, but it's interesting, in every single one of these readings, there's almost been a little bit of a risk associated with this next step. There's this sort of increasing of benefit. And I've felt like saying every single time, and I think I have, so I'm going to say it again, it's the kind of problem that's good to have, because with your awareness of this, you can know and control it. You would not have that problem if you weren't actually starting to be successful and seeing the power. Let's see the impact on others or impact from others, because whenever we make significant shifts, even if they're subtle, it does have an impact on our relationships. So let's just see what happens with that. Okay, for a start, I think that you may find people want to work with you, job offers, contracts, all of that sort of thing. I think people are going to see, they're going to see a shift where you suddenly, you know, you're making money, or you've got exactly the lifestyle that you want, whatever it might be, you're attracting, you know, what you want. And I think that others are going to be inspired by this, and they want you to show them and help them to break out of their own limiting patterns, their sort of own sense of lack or limitation in some way. So I think that some of you may take on in some sort of like spiritual or psychological or coaching, mentoring sort of practice as a result of this, because people are going to see, they're going to see what you've done. They're going to see, it's almost a rags to riches. I'm not saying you're necessarily sort of in rags at this point, but it's almost as though this is enough of a shift, this brings about enough of a thing that others want to learn how you did it. So there's sort of a sense around that, and maybe some contractual work opportunities around it. People will also see this as a just thing. They'll see it as happened quickly, but they'll see it as just. They see it as a kind of a liberation from lack. And as I say, I think that will inspire people. So you don't really have a pushback from people. You have almost like a following as a result of it. But this is, again, why that devil card is there. It's kind of like, then keep in moderation. Understand that this is a sort of a power of the universe. It's interesting. I have a friend who I think is very effective with law of attraction. And the way that he talks about it is that he knows it's almost like being in a club. Not as sort of like basic as that, but it's kind of like you have that sort of sense, you get that information, you know what you should do and so forth, and how to manifest something. But on the other hand, when people come to you and they need something, you have to be willing to give back. This is this sort of like generosity of spirit of the Six of Pentacles. So that's the key. It's always knowing that there's almost an exchange of energy operating here. And for you to reach that full potential, there's almost a pay it forward. And as long as you do that, I think you'll find. So let's have a look at, using the Heart Code Oracles, how this impacts various aspects of your life. When you realize the power of your mind and you shift towards envisaging the ultimate that you want to achieve, rather than the almost, as I say, preemptive, lesser, what would I be able to settle for type of option. So how does this impact relationship energy around you? Attitude. Yeah, it's all about attitude. Now, look, some people may have attitude with it. You know, some people might go, oh, that's all fine. But, you know, like you can't control things that much, but you actually can. Like, I don't think everybody can just sort of envisage and do law of attraction. I think that's kind of a skill, but I think that you can. Others, I think, have to do a lot more work on it. For you, you've just got to shift the patterns of your thinking. And this will shift some attitudes around relationships for you as well, I think. For career, prioritization. That's interesting. That came up for one of the others. So some of you may have come to two. Once you start to move up the ladder or do whatever this is, or start to make the money and all that kind of thing, you probably are going to have a lot of demands. I think you're going to have demands of people who want to understand what you've done. So you're going to need to prioritize where you put your energy. This is also another way of using thought in a positive way, being in the driver's seat. Let's have a look at lifestyle. Momentum. Yeah, everything's going to pick up. That's also why you have to be sort of aware of where you can sort of get a bit addicted to some of the energy, like making sure that it's working for you, that you've prioritized your energy. And also on that level, let's have a look at well-being. Hydrate. That came up for another as well. So I think that's like, I think it's just a kind of a message about, well, it's a double message, I think. It's partly just make sure that you get the rest, you get the nutrition, you get the hydration, don't overwork it, don't become obsessed with success, because success starts to come and you've got the momentum. But I think, it's also around the emotional side of this, the water element, make sure your heart is in what you're doing. I'm also saying with the 77777 there on this card, I feel like this is saying some of this momentum is spiritually driven. This is why I think you actually really do have this ability. There's something quite magical about you. And so once you connect, you're actually connecting to a divine source. It's almost like you close the door on the divine source up till now. If you open it up and to that connection and believe and start thinking about what you want to manifest, you can bring that in. So let's have a look at a couple of psychological elements for you that you could think about that will help you even more do this. Constructiveness, that came up as well. I'm wondering, I do think you might have gone to a couple, or some of you might have, not all of you. And cautiousness. Okay, and this is this. So yes, once you start doing this and you start understanding your power, you need to make sure that what you're doing is constructive, that it is reciprocal energy, that it pays it forward, all of those sort of things. This is not a contrivance and so forth, but you need to sort of have a plan what to do once you start to succeed, because it's going to happen quite quickly. So have that sense about that, have a constructive way of dealing with it and a way to regulate your own responses with this. And some of that may be to be a bit cautious. I think it's really mainly about being cautious about the impact on others and on how you develop and how you keep everything in balance. So keeping those two things in mind, it's not going back into the kind of negative, maybe this isn't going to happen, or maybe I have to settle for less. That's not the sort of cautiousness. I think it's more that once you start to open up to your power, you need to be constructive and cautious about how you use that energy, because you're going to start to see that it is sacred, but it's also able to manifest and that you're able to do it. Okay, so let's get you a couple of archangels to help, particularly with all those sevens there. You're very connected. This is very material. It's going to happen on a very material level. It's about money. It's about the good life. It's about the powers of the world. It's about manifestation, but it is very divinely connected. So let's see what archangels will help you. Sandalphon, potential, yeah, massive potential, and it's on earth, it's earthy. You are meant to do something here and then to kind of help others do it, I think, and to realize their potential. That's why I think that many of you may end up being like mentors or coaches or teachers or something like that, spiritual leaders, whatever way you're doing this. And then we also have Metatron, divine you. Yeah, this is coming from the divine. That's the other thing actually that I'm getting for some of you with that devil card. You may find when you start to make this shift and you start to be successful that there's almost like, not literally deals with the devil, but people trying to draw you more and more and more into the material and less to your spiritual side. Call on Metatron and Sandalphon to make sure that you stay connected, and that potential always stays balanced. Because I just think it's like there will be people who want to come along and almost seduce you towards things because they can see what they can make out of you once they see. But there's also going to be genuine people who just want to learn from you. So these archangels will help you with this, with what cautiousness you need, with what is a constructive way to use your potential. Okay, so to finish off, we're going to get a couple of blessings from the Fae that can come from making this shift, which is really a shift in your belief in yourself. And then we'll also use the Enchanted Spell Oracle to see what you can manifest. I mean, you can manifest a lot, but just to sort of see a synthesis of it. So firstly, a couple of blessings from the Fae for you, pile 3. The gift of sharing. That's interesting. And a blessing of Arwen. So the blessing of Arwen is about inspiration and bringing things into being. So I think this is the overarching thing, that once you sort of start to realize your magic, you can bring that in. But the gift of sharing is also a gift that you're meant. It's part of what this is about. As I say, I like that friend of mine who's very good at this. It's not just a thing about your life, but it's about how you can help others and how you can share others, with your connection and what you see in their potential. Bring those two things together, and that keeps being on. Actually, that's interesting. Hydrate. Keep the tap on. Keep the inspiration coming. The way that you do that universally is to share and to pay it forward. Okay, so to finalize pile 3, let's get you an enchanted spell oracle just to see the final sort of synthesized manifestation of shifting your belief in yourself and what you can manifest. And shifting the programming. This is really what it's about, the self-talk into something more positive. Love. Wow. So you could find, well, I think that people are going to really admire what you do. I think people are really going to love what you have to offer and how you do things. I think you are going to help others. So on a universal level, there's love, but it may even bring in love, the happy home, the good life. If you are not with someone at the moment, that could be bringing this in through the process of doing this. If you are with someone, then I think it's a broader love. It's love for the earth. It's love for the people that you're around. It's love from others who appreciate what you're bringing to them, particularly about them understanding their potential. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 3, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. But otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.